Hi, Shilpa.
Hello.
How are you?
I am fabulous. Look at you in the outdoors, always in the best setting. I love it.
Always in the outdoors. This is my dream. I'm soaking it up as much as I can be.
I love it
It'll
so
be
much.
raining, fall. So
Uh, Take it all in.
yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So I
Nice.
dropped the replay in the chat just in case there's anywhere you want to share it or have it. It's there.
Perfect.
And I'm so excited. I was just like pouring myself something to drink as I was headed this way. And I was thinking to myself, I think that we could probably talk about things like every week.
I
I was
know.
like, there's so many things that we can get into today. So I'm excited to dive in and see where we go and hear what's alive for you right now. And yeah, just see what emerges. So is there anything here in the moment that feels juicy that you want to catch me up on, or where are you at?
Um, Honestly, serving my clients, I'm just in this phase of like expanding in new ways. Playing more with vision of what I can create in my business. Um, and also just like it's really interesting actually now that it's coming up. It's interesting to see how this even belief or like discomfort, something I've fought for a long time of this discomfort of like, yeah, I want to make a ton of fucking money. And that doesn't make me greedy or an evil person because I'm realizing like for me to like talk about money and the desire for money and ever bringing that up with my clients or work, I would feel weird about because then I'm like, oh, are they going to think that I'm just like using them for this big vision of just having a ton of money? But it's like, they all want it too. They all want
Yeah.
it
Yeah, that's exactly right.
too.
So that's a really good place to dive in because that the truth is that the clients will absolutely think that if
Yeah.
they're still stuck in some poverty consciousness, they
Mm-hmm.
will feel that. And if they want to stay there, then they may stay in that level of consciousness and see you through that
Yeah.
lens. And if they don't want to stay there and they want to curiously explore what's possible for them,
Mm.
then they will keep checking you out. And I, like I said, I feel like we could talk about so many things that I'm trying to like reel myself
I
in
know.
because I feel like I have a million stories and it's so fun to talk with you. But I'm thinking about, like, I'll just share this as maybe a Cliff Notes version of maybe like the very first year that I was in business. And
Mm.
I took a contract while I was building my private client caseload, my private practice. And I remember the doctor inviting me and my partner at the time to like a special dinner. And when we rolled through, is for those people who know Arizona, it's the Biltmore area. And I'm just like, I'm living in an apartment at the time. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even understand. I don't understand where the money, like, where's the money? Show me the money. And I'm like so curious about how people are creating it.
Yeah.
And, it's not that I came from complete poverty because I kind of had, my background was that my parents or one of my parents, they were kind of from both sides of the track, but it's
Mhm.
like one had money and the other didn't. And so
Mm.
I always lived in this like fancy and poor kind of like back and forth between the two and felt what it was like in both.
Yeah.
And so I was always so curious about people who chose to create more. Like that was just a guiding light. And so going back to your clients who want more, a lot of times I feel like contrast, when you've had the contrast of poverty and wealth, it's like, why would you choose? And
Why
some,
would
like sometimes people find a sweet spot in the middle too. Like
yeah.
it just depends on your taste. But I think it's so fun the spot that you're in. And it does remind me of past clients who had to go through kind of the fires of hell with if they had big audiences, and
Mm,
the judgment that
yeah.
kicked up. And actually, I never thought about this, but this is kind of juicy. They were love coaches. And
Ah,
yeah, and they didn't talk about money because it was all about love,
yeah.
relationships, intimacy. But as they were growing and expanding, they were realizing like that they actually wanted to charge more. And then, of course, as
Mhm.
they did, that kicked up,
Mhm.
pushback from people, pushback who were their diehard fans.
Yep.
And you got to see who it's like fair weather fans. If you start growing and changing and stepping into more,
They
they
don't
have
want.
the choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so many cool things. So yeah, okay. So I'm just tuning in myself of like knowing that there's so many directions we can go. I when I was sharing this, like an hour ago, what was really alive and present was this tantric art of life and business, and knowing that yeah, that we have this commonality of love and relationships. Because honestly, I haven't done any work with any clients whose relationships haven't improved, even though
Mhm.
I'm supporting them in their business and to create more wealth. Because it's wealth from the inside out, their relationships naturally improve because you're improving the relationship with yourself, right? So there's a lot of commonality in the work that we do
Oh, absolutely.
with you as a love coach. And so I think the place that I would love to take us, at least for now, is to kind of hear what life is like for you before you and I met,
Mhm.
because you're already doing amazing work. You're already have amazing clients. You're so passionate about the work that you do that on the surface, it could be like, well, I don't like really need anything, or but because you are someone that loves to evolve and expand, you felt called to my spaces. And so what do you feel like has maybe shifted the most from that?
Okay, well, honestly, lots of things. So when we first met, I was very much looking to coaches. I was outsourcing my power and things weren't really clicking in the way that they really needed to for me to realize, oh, I am money. Like I am money, meaning my energy creates that, or I draw that in, even though that's literally what my work is all about too, right? We are love, we attract that. But it wasn't really hitting. I was coming from like a small-minded victimhood, um, just not feeling so powerful. And I would look to like one of the other coaches I had invested in, and I was looking to this woman, seeing her lifestyle and getting lost in this like in the numbers and making it mean something
Hmm.
and being like, oh, that's what I want and I don't know how to get it, or I don't know, it's just very weird. And then you and I had met, had lots of conversations. I was like, oh, I really like what you're about. I love your energy. And then I was like, I didn't really know what supervision was going to be all about, but I was like, okay, I like laning. I guess I'll just sign up. I don't
This is great feedback, by the way. I'm working on that.
know. So, I signed up and I'm like, oh shit, this is like my own evolution in this space of like this is what I was looking for. I didn't want someone to just give me strategy and talk at me. I wanted someone to help me process my shit, the deeper shit, so I can stop blocking myself from really stepping into my own power, from attracting the money that I was wanting to attract, from just being braver in general in business and in life. And so I have a lot more self-awareness. I love the tools that you've been giving us. I even like share them or make them my own and share it with my clients. It's just so cool. It's like a whole different world. I was telling you a couple of months ago or a couple of weeks ago, I was like, oh my God, like your work is your space is such a special place because
Hmm.
I don't know a lot of other business coaches or wealth coaches that are like that. Well, I've never worked with a wealth coach. I've worked with business coaches and I still work with business coaches, but it's very much like strategy. Of course, there's mindset, but you give us the tools to dig into our own shit in a very unique way. So it's very authentic change and change that lasts for that purpose because there's like a deeper understanding of yourself. And that's the kind of work I like to do on myself. So like I said, it feels like therapy while you're making money. I don't know how like I
Yeah.
don't know how else to
Well,
describe
it
it.
is because you're ultimately looking at any sticky spots.
Yeah.
I don't like to put it in the healing paradigm, but it is technically like
Mhm.
because the fact that healing could be never ending, I don't use that word anymore. But
Yeah.
the truth is that regardless of, and I just got through doing the live stream about this, it's like no matter what level of business you're at, you're going to bump up against something sticky
Yeah.
before you shift into that new way of being, that new identity that is that level of wealth. And so, in that way, it's quote unquote money wounds or
Yeah.
relational wounds that are blocking you from the intimacy of being with that part of yourself. And as the energy gets drained from that particular trigger or sticky spot, now you've become more magnetic instead of having these energy leaks. So I love hearing about that. I'm tempted to ask you what your life and business looked like before
Yeah.
our work together, but I'm also mindful of the fact that we've really only been working together for a few months. It's not like the
But I
before
changed
and the
fast.
after.
But I
But
do
yeah,
change fast. I was like,
yeah,
I evolve
totally.
fast. Yeah, yeah. And it's so funny because before I was so careful about where or like the money, like I was scared of money actually, if I'm going to be honest, of like investing. There was a lack of trust there, and it's so different now for me. Of course there's still like, okay, I'm still navigating it, but it's different because I've made back my money that I
Mhm.
invested with you pretty quickly as well. Because since then I've had my highest months, like I haven't made the kind of money I was wanting to make in my business. And I'm like, oh shit, like things really started to change or turn around for me after we started working together. I've just changed in so many ways where I was allowing before I was also allowing my business to take over my life,
Mhm.
in a way that I was like becoming resentful or angry, and even the money aspect where I was pedestaling money. Um,
Mhm.
and now it's more so I'm having more fun and play. And I make that a priority because you came into my life and you're like, you better be having some fucking fun while you're doing this. Yeah. So I'm like, okay. So, and that's also helping me connect more with my daughter, which has been a really big thing for me. Being able to balance my business, which I love so much and does feel like play sometimes, or it feels like play often. But I was
Yeah,
gonna
well, we have these different play buckets, right?
yeah.
It's like a musician who loves the drums and the guitar and the
Yeah.
just different play.
But I was getting burnt out and resentful as
Mhm.
well, because I wasn't having other forms of play. So it's been nice to like tap into like art and just slower ways of moving and not beating myself up, thinking like, oh my God, I just totally failed my business because I didn't take any action today, or I didn't do. It was so much about doing rather
Yeah.
than being. And now I'm understanding the concept of, oh, being. Okay, that actually does make a huge difference.
And there's so much more power and potency in what you do when you are in that state of being. So I love, love, love hearing that that's deepening for you,
Hmm.
in a way that is not only going, I mean, it's already increasing your impact and your income, but also your family, right? Because I think that's what I really want people to get is that when we're talking about wealth from the inside out, we're talking about holistic health. And
Hmm.
money is just one aspect.
Yeah.
Wealth is just one. I say wealth. Wealth is like the whole picture. The actual root words of wealth is health and well-being put together. So it's
Hmm.
like wealth is not just about money, but so many people think of wealth as money.
Yeah, 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 and that's what I was doing too. It was like that was it. But I'm like, dude, I love the freedom I get to have. I get to play more. I get to just enjoy life in general, enjoy my connection with my husband, my daughter. Um, and I was gonna say one more thing and I forgot, but it'll probably like circle back around. But
Well, hopefully, as people hear you speaking, they recognize because I say this a lot and I'm always marinating in a question like because of
mm,
evolution where I'm like I wonder does that really land, but this idea of money being the cherry on top because what you're
yeah,
describing is like what spiritual gurus and masters are pointing people to, the peace of the present moment, the peace of innocent childlike play, and just how rewarding and satisfying that is when you actually get to enjoy your life. And then the money is the cherry on top of that. So the fact that you're actually expanding the joy, play, and pleasure in your life while expanding your income is just such a beautiful gift that you're modeling for your daughter.
Oh, absolutely. I'm like, not even just my daughter, for my husband. Like, he's like, I'm ready to leave my job. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it's really cool for him to also see a different lifestyle. And for me to also be that proof of like, yeah, you can make it happen for yourself too, right? And the other point that I wanted to get to was also how I'm transforming or changing or like looking at myself in your space because of the guidance through you and the tools that you offer. I'm also bringing that level of like awareness and like just new approaches and new ideas that you bring into my life. I'm bringing that to my work, and it's helping my clients immensely. And I think that's been such a gift for
Mm,
me
I
in
love
that.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And honestly, that's why it's called supervision. For anybody wondering why the mastermind body is called that, is because as a retired therapist, I've been a supervisor. I've provided many, many interns and clinicians with that gift of supervision so that they're giving the best client care. But I loved the play on words because we're actually talking about X-ray vision as well, seeing deeper and deeper into yourself, into your intuition, so that as you're doing that work on yourself, your clients automatically up level by osmosis, because
Ah.
it's like I can't tell you how many times my clients will just begin to evolve and up level and receive codes because of the work I'm doing before we've even talked about it, right?
Mhm.
There's like this energetic osmosis happening. So
Yeah.
I question sometimes that people actually get all the layers and nuance of that word, but that's really where it came from. So it brings me a lot of joy to hear that it actually is translating in that way for you.
I was
So,
gonna, I love that. Yeah. I love the meaning behind it. Yeah.
thank you. So I know I said we could go in so many different directions, but I'm curious how it feels to get into a little bit of the relationship stuff and the Tantra stuff. And because I
Yeah.
know there was some conversation that we had a while back where I was sharing what I was kind of lit up about, and you're like, oh, tell me more. And then you're like out buying the books. And so I
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
that's really something that we might both enjoy.
Mhm.
Um, and in order to do that, I feel curious about the relationship that you do have. I know you guys have been together 5 years, you've been married, you have a baby, you have this beautiful life. I don't really know, um, I guess, much about your journey with him
Mhm. Mhm.
in terms of, I've read a little actually. I love that you share so much of your journey with him online because I'm able to see some of the things that you guys work through.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I feel like somehow that would be helpful to have a little bit more insight, and then we can kind of go deeper if you want.
Yeah, I guess overall we've gone through a lot together because of the way that we got married. We eloped, and it was very much non-traditional to my family. Like, so he dealt with a lot of, we both did, but he had a lot of hate for my family initially.
Mm,
So we actually grew really, really close together the first couple of years of our marriage, just laying the foundation of that because of also that.
sure.
So, and then we've like traveled the world together. So we had a lot of things that we've just tackled. It's a very unique, we put ourselves in a lot of different challenges, unique challenges, and
Hmm.
tackled many things together. And we're in this now actually a growth phase of our relationship because he's evolving, I'm evolving. But we want to, evolve together rather than apart because that does happen in relationships. And this is my second marriage. And I'm like, okay, we got to put in the work to make sure we're
Yeah.
growing together. So Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, knowing too that you have launched the Spicy Wives Club, right?
Yeah.
Of course, we go through these initiations as
Yep.
we are preparing to kind of share more of our work. So it makes a lot of sense. I know for me, and it's interesting because I went through this long phase after the business breakup that I went through a couple years ago, where I kept falling into the illusion of the boredom being something external. Like I really slid into believing that, even though despite how much work you've done and how many years of spiritual, it's like I fell into the illusion that my boredom was coming from something external. And
Hmm.
so I was bored. I was bored with my business. I was bored with my partner. I was bored with me. I was bored with my creations. It didn't matter how creative I was, no matter how much I was like putting out or playing with. It was just like, meh, like
Yeah.
it's just so, and it was a really like necessary thing to go through. Like
Mm.
I think about creativity, it's like there's a healthy boredom when you have a little creative breakthrough, when something's kind of not working, but you stay with the creative process and there's this flexible commitment to playing until you kind of see something you didn't see before. And I
Mm.
tend to think of life as the creative process. So it's like, here I am, I'm living this interactive dance exhibit, whatever this thing is.
Yeah.
And I just kept staying with it and being curious and, finally letting it pop. It was just like it finally popped and burst that I was able to see like this is me. Like I am the one creating this boredom and everything. And like I need to get my energy pulled back into me instead of having you asked recently, like, what isn't exactly is an energy leak? Like, how do you define that? And really, at the deepest level, it's like these places where you're just abandoning what you really want or like the way that you really want to move. And for me, I was doing it in a way that it just felt safe. Like whenever if there's not a risk, it doesn't have to be life or death type of risk, but if there's like no creative risk,
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
going to be bored. And there was
Yeah.
no creative risk in what I was doing. I kept leaning on my past success, leaning on the stories of, it was just like, what new wants to come through? And so I had to get to the place of like, well, the creative risk is to actually stop fucking trying, like to
Mm.
be in the emptiness and to feel what it's like to just not be a prolific creator, because I've always identified with being a prolific creator. And so there was so much wound up and almost an achiever of like
Okay.
there's a lot of love and approval that I'm giving myself, like
Mm.
patting myself on the back for being this prolific creator that I had to and I'm still to someone else I probably still look like a prolific creator, but for me it was like very small.
Yeah.
And I had to be okay with myself in that. And it was pretty hard to be okay with my partner in that because there's this huge vulnerability of him
Mm.
seeing me in like not my best light.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, actually, do you remember the moment then when supervision was kind of birthed? Because is this the when the bubble burst? Is that what you created once the bubble burst, or was it something else?
No, the supervision was me being kind of impatient with myself because
Mm.
it was an idea that I'd had for a long time. And
Mm.
I kept waiting for like the perfect time or the perfect description or, like all the perfect things. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like we're
Mm.
just gonna go. And it may be that it's a one man show. Like I'm picturing a paint like a gallery or something. Maybe only one person shows up for the experience, and that's okay because I've had this creative idea for quite some time, and I really don't want to sit on it anymore.
Yeah.
I want to move the energy and see what emerges from that. And so I would say the Wealthy Creative membership It
Mm,
came before supervision. And
mm,
so it was like that felt really fun. And so I was talking about the flexible commitment and moving things around and it makes me think of like rearranging furniture in the den when you've
mm,
gotten bored or tired of it the way it is. It was like just letting myself move things around a little to try to see what am I not seeing here?
mm.
Because sometimes you can sit with something for as long as you
Yeah.
can, and if it's not you still need the movement to see the missing pieces. And so yeah, though I think the wealthy creative membership and that came right before you and I met. Like I already had members in there. And then when I came back from Colombia, I think I launched the supervision
Mm-hmm.
space. And it's been just in the last like probably month that I have just been feeling more and more of my energy coming back into me
Mm.
from letting myself unhook from that achiever identity.
Ah,
Yeah.
how did you do that? Yeah, because that is a tough one.
Yeah, it was a lot of stillness,
Mm,
a lot of like physical stillness. Because I talk about energetic stillness a lot, but it was a lot of physical stillness because what's funny is that it's not my first rodeo with this aspect of my identity because when I started my first business, I was diagnosed with a autoimmune before, like right after I left my job and right before I started my business. It was
mm,
kind of like the worst timing ever. And then
yeah.
it was like, oh, okay, how do we really feel about this? Okay, we really are choosing this despite how everything looks out here, because
Wow.
it would have made more sense to stick with the job and insurance and salary and all that. And I was like, no, we're doing it. And so there was a time where I was unhooking from that achiever identity even then. But it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like I got so close to the core and and then backed off, if that makes sense.
Mm, okay.
And so it was like I probably unhooked part of it that allowed me to be more present and like less in a fight or flight energy of just push, go, build, make, that kind of thing. So there was way less hustle than I had ever experienced in my life at that time.
Mm,
But once I started getting busy with my business, because I hadn't gone through the entire core of it, it was
mm,
easy for things to show up and latch back onto that energy. And
yeah.
so I kind of had to go through, it's almost like another dark night of the soul
Mm-hmm.
to get through all the way to the other side.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I get the benefits. So you got me.
Yes, you do. Yeah, and I'm happy you're not having to go through the dark night of the soul to experience it because
Yeah.
we've had conversations about that, and I think that's one thing that draws us to each other is that we do have the capacity to be with the darkness,
Mm-hmm.
especially with our clients because of the darkest aspects that we've touched on in our own psyche.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that I think unless you've had your own experience with that, you're
Yeah.
gonna run from it. And it actually does make me think of our experience in Colombia, where
Mm-hmm.
we got to witness what it was like for someone who's very high vibe and very much sees the lens through that energy. And I hear it all the time on the industry where it's like, I've got to be an energetic match. I've got to get my energy up. I've got to be high vibe. And that's actually not true. That's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of management and manipulation of your energy. And
Yeah.
it's coming from fear of being with your own darkness.
Yeah. And I saw how that blows up in your face, or you just aren't or it's not how I would want to show up in business and serve my clients. So I think it was such a honestly, I see that experience as such a gift because I'm like, oh, I didn't have to go through it. I get to watch someone else go through, like have that
Right.
experience in front of me and then
Right.
learn from it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's a beautiful, and I think you and I may have had this, and for those of you watching a replay, we're simply talking about witnessing leadership that um not everyone is designed to go to the depths and
Hmm.
to go into the darkness and support clients in that way. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's not a judgment of good or bad. I tend to think of it almost like counseling. There are counselors out there who are absolutely brilliant for an acute emergency. And you wouldn't be doing depth work in that moment. If somebody is like in an acute state, you want a band-aid, just like an
Mhm.
ER room. Like you don't want to be doing deep, I don't know, physical therapy when someone has a gaping wound or something at the ER. So there's different times and place for different things.
Yeah.
And if you are in a place where your life has already had a lot of depth and you require a certain level of intimacy and you feel unmet in that, then you'll simply fall out of that person's field because there's not an energetic resonance if someone is needing a different type of quote unquote medicine.
Yeah,
And
no, go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
no, and I was just going to say, we've both talked about how much we learn from every situation, and a situation's always happening for us. I think it was incredibly revealing for us to be in a situation where we got to see the contrast and expose
Mhm.
our deep values of depth.
Yes. And I think that's what really came up for me through that experience was like, wow, that's not like I'm so upset by it. Why am I upset by it? Because it goes against my values of what I believe a true leader to be, the qualities that a true leader embodies, at least in my eyes, for the kind of leadership I want for myself and how I want to lead my life and lead my clients.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a brilliant topic, really. It's like leadership. What is leadership?
Yeah.
Because it's so different for everybody. But I think that you and I tend to agree that there's a depth of intimacy
Yeah.
that you can show up to any situation and meet it without force, without judgment, without making the situation wrong and de-escalate it. It's so funny, the imagery that pops in my mind sometimes. I have an image of I'm trying to remember what they're called, but it's like a person who's called in a bomber situation and their job is literally to talk the bomber or the person who,
Oh, uh-huh.
and it's just the art of relationships. It is the
Yeah.
art of being able to meet the moment with non-judgment and non-hostility and um yeah, just non-attachment that just like brings the energy to a still point. And
Yeah.
it's just like there's nothing wrong here. There's nothing wrong here. And the person can almost just like, I'm just watching them just like softly turn over a gun. It's just
Mm.
like I don't need this weapon anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is an art to that I feel that I value in leadership.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. I love that you said like there's just like non-attachment uh piece to making it somehow about you or mean something about you. Yeah, so I think that's a beautiful way because yeah, that's why I love being in your space
Hmm.
because otherwise you can take everything personally because it's hard. Like we're wired that way, right? We can take everything personally that a client might come at us for rather than taking ownership. We're
Yeah.
triggered and stuck in that state of, oh my God, I am a horrible human being, horrible coach. This means like something bigger than it has to mean.
Or the inverse of what you just said, which is
Yes,
this person is so irresponsible. I do not want anything to do with this type of client.
yes,
So it's an
exactly.
othering, right? It's like making the someone else instead of recognizing like we're all the light and the dark.
Yep, exactly, exactly. 100%. So
So
yeah.
yeah, bringing it back to relationships, it's like and especially ours, I feel like as leaders who are walking our walk, dancing our dance in our own intimate relationships while guiding other clients in their business and relationships, it's like it's a lot, but it's also so beautiful to be living it like here in your little inner circle, and then sharing it out here. So I'm curious because you said you're in a growth, and I think this is true for both of us that we're in a growth season within our relationship. What are you noticing that's shifting and changing and deepening? Because a lot of times I know in my life it's a spiral. It's not like we're having totally new experiences, but they have a different texture and nuanced tone.
Yeah. So it was funny because all of a sudden we're having like arguments and feeling more like energy behind it than we usually do. And I'm like, oh shit, what the hell is going on here? You know, I'm like, ah. And then of course all of my anxiety, my fear, all of that pops up, and I'm like, okay, so there's like a lot of nervous system regulation I have to do in order to realize, wow, this is just we're growing here, and we're
Mm,
needing to understand who we are in this new phase and what we are needing in this new phase, both him and I. So it's been really just so cool for to see us create new ways of connecting in in this phase, at least saying, hey, I really want to feel loved this way, or I really want this to feel loved in this time of my life. What I
mm,
liked a year ago is no longer the thing I like today. And this action is actually making me feel turned off or whatever. Like it's just like a whole lot of communicating of like new things. And now we're connecting on like books that we're reading and like creating this vision for each like for ourselves. And it's like, wow, it's like so exciting
mm,
in a whole new way. And then for me to also, for both of us to do the work on ourselves of detaching from some things that we would love to change in the other person at this moment, but it's like,
mm.
okay, we've got to like let go of certain things that allow that person to go through their own journey.
Yeah.
So it's also our own work, right? Of our own evolution of, yeah. So it's very interesting, but yeah.
Yeah, there's actually it makes me think of uh like what I'm about to say is so hilarious to me because it was probably 9 to 10 years ago, but I did a podcast on how to love your defensive partner.
Mm,
And it was true. Everything I was saying was true, but
mm,
also hilarious that I was also a defensive partner. And at
yeah.
that time, I couldn't fully see both of us,
Yeah.
as clearly. Like I could see him as a defensive partner
Yeah.
for sure.
It's always easier that
And I could advise everyone on how to love this person and not react and be non-judgmental and all that. But I couldn't yet see how defensive and guarded and reactive I was because when you're growing, practice makes progress. And so sometimes you can see the growth and you cannot see all the space back here to get further along. And so that's always kind of comical to me whenever I remember that podcast. And now in this relationship, I really I can't say enough about how much I love the experience of being so present with each other that the defenses just like they pretty much burst immediately because of the presence that we have with each other now. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful growth, journey and period and season. um and to me, like that is the spiritual nature of relationships. Like when we can see relationships as a spiritual teacher, we we just let that person be human.
way.
Like we
Yeah.
just don't react to their humanness. And then when they're in their power again, we're like, I don't know, googly eyes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're not reacting and with withholding love just because they're in their shit.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, definitely something I am learning as I'm evolving. And that's why, like you said, that's why I created the Spicy Wives Society, because I'm like, oh, I'm in this phase right now. I want to help other couples in it too. It's just like it's almost like a really fun space for me to, because I'm like, oh, I want to experiment even more in my relationships so I can bring that over here. It's just really fun. And I see what you're talking about, like where you might have been like really focused on serving people that maybe you were in a place like years ago or whatever it was, and it's maybe just doing something out of safety, and then
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, but this is exciting and new, and it feels brave because it does like it's not like my 100% solid thing. I'm still learning through it too, so it's really
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's there's a lot more vitality when you're teaching and leading on the edge of what you're learning. Not
Mhm.
what you learned 5 years ago or you've mastered 10 years ago, but like I'm right here and I'm only a step ahead.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to get to share the thing that you're only a step ahead.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
creates way more tension, creative tension. I know you've
Yeah.
enjoyed learning more about creative tension, and that's exactly that. And
Yeah.
when the boredom comes in, it's because we're not doing that, because we are
Mm.
leaning on the safety of what is known versus leaning into the unknown.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, because it's feeding my like that excitement piece that I've been like looking forward to kind of like revitalize all the work that I'm doing. It's all fun, but this is different. It's
Yeah.
very yeah, interesting. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So anything else you want to get into? I was just thinking about kind of like the business aspect of things and um maybe things that you thought that you really had to do. And this may not apply to you. So if not, we won't, let's not force it. But if there were things that maybe you thought you had to do, or even maybe still think that you have to do that isn't 100% true, that's like falling away as you deepen your own play and pleasure and creativity, presence, all of that.
The first thing that popped into my head was trying to get everything done at once. Like you have this vision and it's like, I need to have all the pieces together right now for it to actually work or for me to make the kind of money that I want to make.
Mm,
I'm learning to be gentler with myself and being like, okay, no, you can do one step at a time. You might have all these ideas uh,
yeah.
and pieces that you want to be able to create, but honestly, you can still make things happen. Like even like I'm talking about Spicy Wife Society, right? Like I don't have it all mapped out or figured out or anything like that, but it's happening as I can handle it. Meaning like two people came into the program. If I really had maybe five or six or whatever more than that, maybe I wouldn't like be able to handle it at the moment of like where I'm at on my journey. I don't know. So I'm just like it's very interesting to kind of see everything evolving. And then when I do have that space, I'm able to like start that actually do that podcast or do this other tackle this other idea I had rather than trying to get everything done at once to think that makes me think like, oh my God, like there's no time, there's not enough time, or things are gonna fall apart if I don't get it done. But it's like,
Yeah, when I think about like the archetypal language, it's the saboteur that thinks everything needs to be done right now.
yeah,
And also just thinks, I mean, it's kind of hooked into the prostitute archetype too, but it's like it thinks that you have to have everything lined up perfectly in order to create X or create Y,
yeah,
Z, whatever. And that's what I hear you pointing to about the money. It's like, no, you didn't need all the pieces
yeah,
to sell it. And I think that that is something that really a lot of entrepreneurs, I mean, it depends on what type of entrepreneur and what season of business you're in. But I know for recovering perfectionists, especially, they think that they need way more uh, ducks in a row than they actually do to sell.
yeah.
And the way I like to think of it is like you can sell tickets to a show while you're still rehearsing. Like you
Mm,
wouldn't need all the costumes finished, all the set design, all the music, all the things, and you would still sell tickets to the show. It,
yeah,
it would
yeah,
not make any sense to do all these things and have it mapped out, built out perfect, and then sell it. And
yeah.
if nobody buys, like that's silly.
Yeah, so I'm realizing that myself now. So it's like, okay, yeah. So it's been nice. You
Yeah.
get to, you don't have to, it's almost like you get to be slower pace than you think you have, like yeah, slower than you think you have to be, right? Whereas I think you have to go like fast and hard with a ton of
Mhm.
energy. And it's like, no, you can be gentler and you can be slower and you can still get results.
You can get better
Yeah,
results.
yeah, yeah,
You
that
can
too.
get better results. I mean, keep in mind that you had the biggest month ever.
Yeah. What
I'm
was it like?
moving slower and playing more.
Yeah, it's true. I think I was like on vacation, made 8K 1 month, and then like in 1 week, I mean. And then last month was like a 35K month that I was like, I haven't seen that much kind of like that kind of money coming in in a very long time. So yay. Yeah, so
Yay.
it's been
That's so,
fun.
it makes me so happy. I'm so
And,
happy.
and I told you that too. I was like, that was kind of easy. I said that to you. I was like, it wasn't as hard as I thought. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the thing is people think more money is going to be harder. But
yeah.
actually, when it's your true taste, when that's actually what you want to be doing, it and I have fallen into this trap too many times. It's I don't even want to talk about it, but it's like trying to sell the smaller thing is
Mm,
actually more work because if it's not what your energy's fully behind,
yeah.
then you're spinning your wheels.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah.
this is why that energetic alignment's so important. We want to sell the thing that is like on the edge of consciousness that you're talking about, kind of like the
Mhm.
thing that you're living and you're only one
Yeah,
step ahead. That's the thing that's going to feel really
exciting.
easy to sell because it's the thing that you want to talk about.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Huh.
And, it's not to say that you can't have signature offers because I know, when you have the desire to create sustainable and a monthly recurring revenue, you don't always want to be reinventing and having to create something new every month or whatever. But what you can do is look at it and look at, well, how can I shift this so that it's still on, it still has the creative tension.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So like even if it maybe it's a name change or maybe it's a change of delivery, like when I used to do Zoom and I switched to Boxer, that kind of thing. It's like really playing with the elements of it.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so anything else you want to get into? Are you feeling complete?
I feel complete. This was a really fun conversation.
I love our
I
conversations. It's
know.
so
So
so fun.
good.
Well, I feel like I have something else to share with you, but I can't think of it right now. So maybe I'll message you later. It feels related to our shared spaces. And yeah, I'll let you go have fun.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me on. For anyone, if you guys haven't heard me rave enough, definitely supervision is a really special place, and working with Lainey has really helped transform me and my work and how I'm calling in my wealth. So,
Hmm. Thank you. Love you,
yeah.
Shilpa.
Love you. Bye.